probably said this so many times, but this pillar is actually my favorite. It's all about time management, and this is something that I'm very passionate about. If you have followed this podcast at all, you know it's something that I love to talk about. It's something that I can geek out on for hours, but I will spare you and keep it to our normal 5 to 10 minute podcast because I could talk about it for literally hours. One of the things that I think is so important about time management is you want to make sure that you don't get stuck in analysis paralysis. So if you're like, what the heck are you talking about, Jill? Basically, what that means is you've done a ton of research, you still continue to do research, but you haven't actually pulled the trigger. And the perfect example of this is organizations that I work with sometimes are looking to be nonprofit status. So, specific example of one group of people that I worked with was they had done years. I know that sounds crazy, but years worth of research and still were not ready to pull the trigger. And when we sat down to go over everything, I said, what's preventing you from actually registering this nonprofit business? What is preventing you from doing the work that you've been researching this whole time? And it basically broke down to analysis paralysis. They were continuing to research because, of course, they didn't want to make a mistake. They didn't want to do the wrong thing, the wrong steps in the wrong order, and they didn't know what to do. And for everybody who has never been through that situation, you're probably saying, are you kidding me? Years worth of research and still hadn't done anything? It's true. And they are not alone. That is not the first group of people that I have worked with that has been stuck in this research quagmire before actually pulling the trigger. And so I am here today to tell you to tell yourself you've got to do it. There's never going to be the right time. You're probably going to make mistakes, and that's okay. And I know it can be scary when you're working with the IRS. You're working with all these different huge government entities that you're terrified of making a mistake. But let me tell you something, because I have made mistakes. And when you call them to admit your mistake and say, listen, I've never done this before, I need some help. I'm not sure if you can help me or if you need to transfer me to somebody else, but let me tell you what I've done so that way you can help me fix it. The majority of people are going to be kind and help you. And if they're not, that's okay. Just hang up and call back and get somebody else. No worries, no harm, no foul. But you've got to make sure that you are moving this business forward. So if there is a decision that you need to make, but you're just continuing to research, today's the day. If you've been waiting for a sign, it's here. It's time to move forward. Put down that research and let's get moving. If you've been listening along in this series, then you know that all the Scale Your Small Business pillars fit together like a puzzle. There are many times that they overlap each other. So if you listened to last week's episode, you might feel like this one meshes really well with the time management. And you're absolutely right. They overlap in different ways depending on where you're at in the process. And that's what makes it great, because wherever you are, these systems can help you. These pillars that we talk about every week can change your business, they can change your life, and they can move you forward, which, let's be honest, none of us know how long we have here. We want to make sure that we're maximizing every single day. So for this week's exercise, I really want you to think about, what are the decisions that are holding me back? What are these things that I'm so scared to move forward with, but I have to stop researching? I know I've got to move forward. I can't wait any longer because I don't know what's coming next, but I've got to move forward. So one thing that I really, really love, in addition to time management, to talk about is the 12-week year. Now that is an actual book written by Brian Moran, where he talks about getting a huge amount of work done. 12 months worth of work in 12 weeks. It's an incredible book. I encourage you to read it if you haven't already, because it has changed my life. The principles in that book talk about the fourth quarter principle. So essentially, if you're in a sales job, you know that you've got a set length of time to get your numbers in by the end of the year, because it's the end of the year. So taking that methodology and transforming it and using it all year long. So instead of thinking, I've got 12 months, you're thinking of 12 weeks. And it really forces you to maximize your time every single day. And I think that's the most important thing about time management is it's all these habits, all these routines, all these things that you are doing and maybe some stuff that you don't realize you're doing. Are you scrolling on TikTok for a couple hours at a time? Now, I know what TikTok's like because I get sucked into that rabbit hole too. And I look at my phone and I'm like, okay, only 5 minutes. And 20 minutes later, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much time I've spent on this. Same thing with reality TV. There's so many different things that are your destination procrastination. It could be laundry, it could be reorganizing a space. I too am guilty of that. However, we've got to get these things done. We've got to make sure that we're moving forward every single day and managing that time management with a system like the 12-week year or any other variation of it. There are many variations of it, so find one that works for you, but 12-week year is what works for me. So let's dive a little bit more into what it's all about, and maybe it will be a good fit for you as well. Let's dive into what 12-week equals a year. Now, this is taken directly from his book, 12-Week Year. So if this is something that interests you, make sure you check it out because I think it could be huge for you and your business. He says, forget about a year. By now you can see the pitfalls associated with annualized thinking. Let's redefine what a year is. A year is no longer 12 months. It's now only 12 weeks. That's right, a year is a 12-week period. Here's why redefining that 12-week year is so important. Because if you've ever had a sales job or you've got to meet certain quotas by a certain time of year, it can be very demoralizing if you've set up your plan, you're working your plan, and by October you realize there's no way you're going to hit it. And so a lot of times people just give up, or maybe people have given up earlier in the year. It just depends on what kind of goal you're trying to reach. So by shrinking that annual time frame down to 12 weeks, you know you've got 12 weeks. If you don't hit your goal, that's okay. You've got another 12 weeks to work on it. So it's a lot less demoralizing because you know that you're going to be strict with that first 12 weeks. You're going to take a break, time to celebrate your wins, and then you're going to start again. It's such a huge change for your mind to undergo, and it's massive for your habits and routine. It's amazing. Another thing within the 12-week year that I have adapted as well is your habits and routines. So the things that you do every morning and every night can really affect how your day happens. So another book to check out is The Miracle Morning. That book was a game changer for me. I mean, there's so many books. I should just do a video on the books that have changed my business because there's so many of them that I'm like, I wish I would have found this book so much earlier. So if you haven't read The Miracle Morning, make sure you check out that one as well. But basically, it's developing your morning routine, making sure that you're getting up early, that you want to start your day the way you want to. Now, I've included an evening routine too because I feel like getting sleep is so important and so underrated. Most people are overworking themselves to the point of exhaustion that they fall into bed only to get up the next morning at the crack of dawn to continue to run on the hamster wheel. Now, we both know that that is not good long term. Your body is not set up that way. Eventually, that is going to catch up to you, and most likely, it's going to rear its ugly head as a sickness, an illness, something that is going to make you slow down so that way you have time to heal. Creating these habits and routines, as well as the 12-week year, allows that to not happen. It allows you to know that there is a specific time of year that you are going to be able to rest, celebrate before you start your next year. Now, when I say year, I mean 12-week year. So keep that in mind. We're not talking about a 12-month annualized period. I think one of the most important things about the 12-week year is you've got to measure things. You've got to know if you were successful or not. And you might not know that if you're not measuring it. So creating those goals and making sure that you've got time every single week, usually no more than 30 minutes, to measure where you're at and keep track of it will propel you forward every single week. I love looking back at my weekly scorecards and seeing where I've come from. Because I think one of the things that is really frustrating is when you leave work every day and you're like, I got nothing done. What did I get done today? Absolutely nothing. Which we know is not true. There's things that you got done, but being able to see that tangibly can really reinforce the fact that you are getting things done and you are moving forward in your business. Time management can be very hard. It can be exhausting at times because you're pooped. And you've got to make sure that you get enough sleep in order to wake up the next morning and continue on with your week. So, the most important things that I want you to look at this week, so when we come back next week to discuss it, you've got something tangible to look at. I want you to look at your habits, your routines. What time do you get up? What time do you go to bed? What are you doing with your day? Now, if this looks like time tracking to you, I think that's a great place to start because it can show you where those empty holes are. Remember where I talked about scrolling TikTok endlessly? This is where you're going to see it in tracking your day. So, looking at those routines and habits as well as tracking that time within your day, you might have a sinking feeling where you're losing time, but maybe you're not. You just know that you're stressed out and exhausted at the end of the day and never feel like you've gotten anything done. So, this is a great place to start.